Hi guys, welcome back to SuperMath4U. This is Mr. Urrego, and today we're doing radicals and complex numbers. Let's start with the standard form of a complex number. It's a plus bi inside parentheses. A and b are any real numbers. The I is the imaginary part. Okay? How do we get the I? Somewhere in our problem we get a square root of -1. When I have square root of -1 somehow, I turn that into I. Somewhere in our problem we'll have an I squared. When that happens, I'll turn that into -1. So the rule is that like that. You see the arrows? Square root of -1 turn into I. I don't have an I and then I turn into square root of -1. I won't do that. Only this direction. Same thing here. I squared turns into -1. I will not turn this into I squared. Alright? That's not the idea. Let's start. Perform the indicated operation and write your answer in standard form, which is a plus bi. So we have this. The main idea is that we need to simplify this. If I plug a negative number inside a square root in your calculator, that's not going to give you an answer. Square root of -1 is the same as 81 times -1. Right? 81 times -1 gives me -81. So that will be the idea in all of those problems. When I have a negative number inside a square root, what I'll do is I break that into the 81 times square root of -1. And this is where the I is coming from. I square root of -1. So this is going to turn into an I, and now square root of 81 is 9. So this part becomes 9i. Minus, same idea here, the -49. I will break that into 49 times -1. We know that square root of 49 gives me 7, and this will give me I. And that's how I start working with those imaginary numbers. Now I have 9i minus 7i. It's just like combining like terms, and my answer is 2i. Here, next problem. Square root of -18 plus square root of -8. Same idea. I break this negative number into the positive number times -1. Same with the -8. Positive 8 times -1. We know that this is going to give me an I. Now, I have to work with the 18 and the 8. So let's work out on the side. Square root of 18, well, let's get the 18 first of all. 18 is the same as 9 times 2. 9 is 3 times 3. So this is inside a radical. So technically, every single one of them is inside a radical. Because I'm doing square root, then the little number that you have there is called the index. Alright, which is a 2. Square root of 18. Square root means a 2. So to make this easy, the idea is when I'm simplifying a radical and my index is 2, it means that for every 2 of the same number that I have inside the radical, one's coming out. In other words, if I do square root of 9, it gives me 3, right? How? Because I have 2 3's inside the radical, therefore 1 is coming out. So let me rewrite this again. Square root of 18, 1 3 is coming out. But there's only 1 2 inside the square root. And remember, my index is 2. I need 2 of the same in order for 1 to come out. Because the 2, I only have 1, stays inside the square root. That means square root of 18 is the same as 3 square root of 2. So let me bring that over here. 3 square root of 2, and square root of -1 is I. Same thing idea with 8. 8 is the same as 4 times 2, and 4 is 2 times 2. For every 2, 1 comes out. So this 2 is going to 1 come out. And I only have 1 2 left, because there's only one that is not coming out of the radical, and that's square root of 8. Square root of -1 becomes I. And now I have this. So the idea is to simplify whatever they gave you. I don't want to have negative numbers inside a radical, so that's why I take the I out of it. Once I have this, it's just a matter of organizing. When I have an I next to a radical, I don't want to have it at the end of the radical. I want to have this in the beginning. So I'll have 3i square root of 2 plus, same idea here, 2i square root of 2. And now I'm ready to add these two. 3i plus 2i. So again, this is the same as that. I square root 2, I square root 2. I have 3 here plus 2 here. 3 plus 2 is 5 of the same thing. Okay? And that will be my answer. We have another one. Now, the operation, it depends. You know, if you have a plus in the middle, you add. If you have a minus, you subtract. Right now, there's no signs between those two parentheses, which means you got to multiply. But I don't want to have negative inside the radical. I have to take care of that first. So this is outside the radical, so it doesn't matter what I have on the outside. What matters is the inside. So this stays the same, -2. And now this, square root of -3 becomes square root of 3 times square root of -1. Here the same idea. 6 times this becomes a 6 times a -1. -2 is on the outside, the square root of 3 is the same thing, and this becomes an I, right? Here, 6, square root of 6, and this becomes an I. And I move that to the front. So I have -2I square root of 3, 6I square root of 6. And now I organize, right? I simplify my expression. Now what am I doing is multiply. Is that we need to remember how to multiply radicals. When I have a radical, a square root, the number on the inside will multiply the number on the inside. Whatever's on the outside will multiply the outside. So outside with outside, inside with inside. That's the rule. So I have -2I times 6I, right? This is only one term times another, only one term. So -2 times 6, it gives me -12. I times I gives me I to the second power. You see, that's how I got the I squared. Now, square root of 3 times square root of 6, it's inside the radical. So 3 times 6 is 18. I have -12. This I squared turns into -1. And this 18, I had to simplify, right? As we can see, I have 2 3's inside, so 1 3 is going to come out. So 1 3 is going to come out, right? Is this 2 coming out? That 2 is not coming out, therefore it stays inside the radical. Now let's do all this. So I have -12 times -1, that's going to be +12, times 3 gives me 36, and the square root is the same. And that will be my answer. So when we're doing radicals, especially with negative numbers on the inside, we have to be careful. Please do not skip steps. Don't jump all over the place. One step at a time. Guys, please subscribe to the channel, like the video, comment, ask me questions. Let me know what you think about this. All right, let's go next. Now, what's the difference between the previous one, right? One parenthesis times another parenthesis, and now I have square root of -50 and I have a parenthesis. Inside my parenthesis, I have 2 terms. That means I have to distribute, right? Distribute. But before we do that, I have to get rid of the negatives. All right, so let's start from the outside. 50 times -1. Same thing always, parenthesis. The 3, square root of 3 times square root of -1, plus, this one is not negative, it's positive, so it stays the same. The 50, let's take it on the side. What's 50? 25 times 2. What's 25? 5 times 5. It's inside a square root. That means for every 2, 1 comes out. Only 1 2 stays on the inside. Square root of -1, it's I. And this is the outside. Parenthesis. Here, nothing to simplify, so this is going to be an I. Square root of 3 times I. And this is a positive radical, so it stays the same. Now let me explain. Why don't we don't want to have an I at the end of the radical? Because normally this is what happens. When you have this, some people will stretch the line and will put the I on the inside. And this is a horrible mistake. That's why instead of having an I at the end, we put it in the beginning and we said I square root of 3. So it's easier and it's better so we don't make mistakes. That's the idea. All right, so let's organize this thing. So I have 5i square root 2 times, and this is, let's put the I in the beginning, and let's put the square root of 5. Okay, so this distribute property. So 5i times I, so 5, technically you have a 1 right there, 1i, right? So 5 times 1 is 5, I times I is I squared, and now square root 2 times square root 3, right? Outside with outside, inside with inside. That's going to give me square root 6. Next, plus 5i square root 2 times square root 5. There's nothing on the outside. Technically you have a 1. So 5i times 1 gives you 5i. Inside with inside, that's going to give you square root 10, close parenthesis. Oh, well, technically there's no need for the parentheses anymore. So let's get rid of this I squared. So that I squared becomes negative 1, the square root of 6. Nothing that I can do here, so I just rewrite it. Now, before I proceed, can I take something out of the 6? 6 is 3 times 2. Only 1 3, only 1 2. Nothing's coming out. The 10, right, is 5 times 2. Only 1 5, only 1 2. Nothing's coming out. So you always, when you're finishing your problem, you always want to see if you can still simplify those radicals. Right now it's not the case. So let's keep going. 5 times negative 1 is negative 5 square root 6, and I have 5i square root 10. Can I combine those terms? No. So here comes the famous a plus bi, right? I have a real number in the beginning, which is negative 5 square root 6, plus bi, and this is my imaginary part. Okay, so this is the complex number in standard form. All right, let's do one more. Now we have this. So we have a parenthesis and negative 2 plus square root of negative 3, everything to the second power. This square is telling me that I have to multiply this parenthesis twice. Let me go back. Like x times x is the same as x squared, right? But if you have x squared, then you said, all right, so x times x, right? 2 times the same thing. That means I'm going to multiply this parenthesis twice. Before I do that, I have to get rid of this. So this negative 2 is not inside a radical, so it stays the same. And now, hopefully by now, we know that this is going to give me I square root 3, because the negative 1 is going to come out to the second power. That square means negative 2 plus I square root 3 times negative 2 plus I square root 3, the same thing. If not, if you know the pattern for this, having a plus b to the second power is the same as a squared plus 2ab plus b squared. This is a pattern that you should know. If you don't know the pattern, then what you do is you break that into 2 parentheses and do FOIL. Let's go. Negative 2 times negative 2 gives me positive 4. Negative 2 times this is going to give me negative 2 I square root 3. And now the second term times negative 2, and that's going to give me negative 2 I square root 3. And the second term times the second term. I times I is going to give me I squared. Square root 3 times square root 3 gives me square root of 9. That's FOIL. Now let's see if we can combine something. So I have 4, and now look at this thing. Negative 2i square root 3 minus 2i square root 3. So I square root 3 is the same as I square root 3. Negative 2 minus 2 gives me negative 4 of the same thing, I square root 3. Next, I have I squared, which is going to give me negative 1. Square root 9 gives me 3. So I'm simplifying. Let's simplify more, because here I'll have a negative 3. So I have 4 minus 4 I square root 3. Now positive times negative gives me a negative, and negative 1 times 3 gives me a negative 3. You see that? So there's no more I squares. I'm not allowed to have any I squares. That's why we turn them into -1. And if I turn them into -1, remember, that -1 is multiplying whatever number's next to it. Once I'm here, then I'm simplifying the real numbers. 4 minus 3 gives me 1, and I bring my I term. And this will be my final answer. All right? So this is going to be A plus BI, and that's my standard form. All right, guys, that's it for today. Thank you for watching. Please subscribe to the channel, like the video, comments, let me know, and I'll see you next one. Thank you for watching. Bye-bye.